Alrighty then. What is up, geeks and geekettes? It's another episode of the Countdown City Geekcast. My name is Steady, and with me on this episode is a man behind the magic, you know him as Joe Garcia.
What's up, everybody? Good to see you, Mike, and you as well, Jericho. And just to go ahead and let everybody know, Happy Turkey Day to everyone.
Happy Turkey Day!
Happy Turkey Day.
We also got the one and only Jericho.
Yo.
And last but never the least, it's Mike.
What's up, guys? There was no WrestleCast this week, so I had to find something. I just kept calling Ted until he let me on. So thanks for letting me be here.
It was like
Good to have you. Good to have you.
He was like Luis Tully in Ghostbusters 1. Somebody let me in! Somebody! What is going on, everybody? This is going to be our Ghostbusters Afterlife spoiler review. Long time coming. Some of us have seen this multiple times, and we just can't wait to talk about it. Some of us have been waiting all year for this movie. Some of us have been waiting 3 decades for this movie, and it's finally time for us to talk about it. Again, spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't know where you've been, but pause this video, come back after you've seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, and then come check out review. And we also want to hear what you think. So let us know in the comments below. What did you think of Ghostbusters Afterlife? What was your favorite
Was
part?
that a call out to JC? If you haven't seen it, where you been?
JC's been a busy guy, man.
Yep.
Coaching softball, t-ball, all kinds of
sports.
Kitty ball.
Dad of the year, that guy over there.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't rest.
And shout out to Tina. Don't wanna
For sure.
either. They're both
Parents of the year.
both rocking it.
Parents of the year.
That's what happens when you have little ones. You're always on the go, busy, man.
Apparently so.
That's the truth. That's the truth. All right. Yeah. Let us know what you thought about the movie. Let us know what your favorite Easter egg was. We want to hear from you guys. Let us know about Ghostbusters Afterlife. At the very end of the show, we're going to give you our Geekcast rating, and that'll be your opportunity as well to let us know what you thought about the film. Drop your rating in the comments below. All right, gentlemen, Ghostbusters Afterlife, a movie that I promise you I never thought we would actually get, especially after how mixed the 2016 film was received by critics and fans alike. Really didn't think anything was going to happen. Real quick story: about three-ish years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, Dan Aykroyd in a interview with Dan Rather said, I can finally talk about something going on with the Ghostbusters franchise. We have this individual who's written a story. It's really damn good, and I think that it's going to be moving forward. That individual was Jason Reitman, the son of original Ghostbusters director Ivan Reitman, and this is a story he put together. And it involves sort of a new film in the original Ghostbusters timeline. It involves the family, the grandkids of one Egon Spangler that basically in the aftermath of his death go to his farmhouse, which is in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, in this place called Somerville, and the mystery and the story unravels from there. And I'm just going to start out by saying this is one of the coolest opening sequences probably in any movie. It's took me completely by surprise, and I hope you guys agree with me about this. We knew that Harold Ramis had passed many years ago, and I was kind of hopeful that there would be some involvement, right, with his character, not physically per se, but I just thought, like, since this is his family, this is going to be the way they're going to tribute to Harold as well as the character Egon. Never thought in a million years we would get sort of a physical stand-in for Egon Spangler in the beginning of this opening sequence. And there's so much to unravel. There's so much to talk about in this, but I hope you guys kind of felt the same way, that like this opening scene is like, it should be praised because I don't think many people saw it coming, and the way they did everything, how they introduced sort of the plot a little bit, and then just you kind of you we see a Ghostbuster get killed on screen. That's also like something that shouldn't be overlooked. That's like a major event to happen. And then we also see the very end of that sequence that PKE made it come back on because the spirit of Spangler is going to remain afterwards. All this is done beautifully. It's a great introduction, and I just loved all of it. Joe, your thoughts about the opening
No,
scene?
man, I'm gonna go last, dude, on this one.
Oh
I'm
God,
going last.
Mike, how about you, man?
You got to save the
No,
star for last.
I agree. I agree with a lot of what you said. I mean, we knew that with Harold Ramis having passed, you kind of wondered how they were going to involve Egon. I mean, obviously, you hoped since they were tying it so much to the original that they were going to get the other Ghostbusters in. But yeah, I definitely didn't expect to just right off the bat it be about him, and then kind of how to bring his death into it as part of the story, and even within that, having right off the bat a lot of those little Easter eggs to connect it. Him shooting the stream on the mountain, him in the chair getting grabbed by the hands.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, like it was a really cool opening sequence. And so even though they don't tell you right away afterwards, the relation with the family you meet, I mean, you get a pretty good idea, obviously. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Jericho, your thoughts about the opening scene, man?
Yeah, man, it was pretty cool to see it happen like this. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't. I thought it was just going to be about the grandkids, and maybe they were just going to talk about what happened to Egon. Just as a little tribute, just kind of mention like, oh, he passed away, or whatever. But to see it happen, to me, that like set the tone for the movie. So I thought it was really, really cool how they showed it. And I love that they didn't show his face. They didn't try to,
Dude, yeah,
do a voiceover for him or anything like that. They
yes,
they kept it they kept it how do I say, like, honorable. They gave him like an honorable tribute there. Didn't have to do prosthetics or anything like that. So I thought that was really cool. And and yeah, I mean, like I said, it set the tone for the movie. It's not only do we already know that this is his family's going to be coming, but then we later find out so much more about him and why he had the whole field of the traps and everything. So I thought it was a great opening, really great opening.
he asked to go last. Here's his opportunity. Joe, talk to us about how great this opening scene was.
It was all right, dude. It was pretty good. I mean, it had a lot of action in it. But
Yes.
you look and see what the other Ghostbusters movies had wanted to do, as far as continuing the saga, and even in the script that never did get released, Hellbent, the plan was to always kill off one of the characters.
Mm.
So they followed suit with that, which I think is a good introduction. Right away, go ahead and killing off one of the main characters. Of course, it had to be Spangler due to what was occurring in the real world. And I think by them not doing a deep fake, like, trying to superimpose somebody's
Hmm.
face, somebody's face, his face on somebody else, should I say, it was a great way to kind of like, give respect to to Egon, but they still were able to portray the actual message, which is that this Ghostbuster was running away from something. He was in dire straits, and
Oh yeah.
Ghostbusters don't usually run away from spirits, so this must have been something really powerful for him to want to, run away from. And basically, what he was trying to do was trying to entrap this thing. So he was putting himself out as bait, So it was an honorable death, so to speak. He wasn't doing it
Yeah.
for himself. He was trying to actually do this for a greater purpose, and seeing that, the meter go off was a nice touch, and you don't really know what killed him though. Was it one of the terror dogs? Was it Gozer? We don't
It
know,
kind of looked like one of the Terror Dogs.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because
As
at
far as
that
like
point, Gozer wouldn't have been available. Like wouldn't
yeah,
have been freed.
Yeah, it's true.
yeah, but the it did look like a terror dog when I kind of looked at it
Yeah.
again, and you just see that ether, that little cloud that was right behind us. Like, okay, you know, I guess that's probably what did it. I mean, it was never said, but it was just kind of one of those moments that was unspoken, and it continued the story, which I thought was a nice touch. It was a great opening sequence. Yes, it was a great opening sequence. It's something like Ted had said hadn't been done before. in any Ghostbusters film, so gave the audience something different from the get go to start the movie. Nice touch.
You asked what was it? So this is one thing that it may need a sort of clarification. I may need to do some more research on it. The only thing that kind of comes to mind is the toy line released something that's known as a Sentinel terror dog or Sentinel dog, I think is what it's called. Stands on two hind legs. The horns kind of go forward a little bit, kind of like a ram. And so when also like really cool thing is like when you first see this utility truck that Egon's driving, you see this sort of invisible sort of creature following him,
Yeah.
and that's not something they do too often is make their spirits invisible. And then even when he gets to the farm, the property, it's invisible steps, but you see it's
Right.
two hind legs standing
Mm.
straight up and down.
So
So
maybe I guess like a scout sort of.
it could definitely be, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
claim to know exactly what it is. Do terror dogs take this other form of what's known as a sentinel terror dog, or is it just something completely different? And if so, um, when the smoke comes down from like the second story or in this opening scene, we see that later when the smoke comes down into Egon's sort of workshop area in like a storage unit outside where his daughter is at, and so that happened similarly, but that was definitely a terror dog. So can
Right.
they both use the smoke entrance like give me a wrestler. I'm trying to think of one like Edge.
Edge. I was just gonna say
Smoke.
smoke entrance. You got to go Edge.
They can both have the smoke entrance. Sure. Okay, that's fine. So very need a little clarification. Are they the
Yeah.
new ghosts that have been introduced via the toy line, or
Well,
terror dogs? They can take these different forms.
gonna have to wait for the sequel
Yeah. There you
Absolutely
go.
right.
or the fourth. I don't know.
Fourth, the sequel
Who
to
knows?
the third.
Right.
Absolutely. All right. Also I it's kind of slightly hard to watch seeing Egon
Mhm.
in just that chair. Like he knows what's coming, you
Mm.
know, and he's not trying to run like Joe mentioned. He's not trying to hide. He kind of knows what the danger's imminent, and
I
it's
mean,
tough. Kind
he
of
took time to put the trap in that puzzle,
yes,
storage. So
Mm.
I think, like Joe said, he sacrificed himself for a greater purpose and
absolutely noble, noble
noble
purpose.
purpose, regardless if he was hoping that the guys would come back to help take care of this, imminent threat or somebody, but he knew it was going to be in a safe spot, and he sat in the chair and he was like, "Bring it on," like
Yeah.
I'm ready to
Yeah.
move on to the next step. So I thought that was really cool how they showed that.
I think he knew his demise was imminent,
Yeah,
and he was
Yeah.
trying to do something to leave a clue behind. You know,
Definitely.
for sure.
I also try to remember another time where this situation might have came up where they have an actor or an actress that's passed and they still needed them for something. Most cases, you don't move forward. Heath Ledger in the Dark Knight trilogy, the third movie by Chris Nolan was going to focus around the Joker after Heath's untimely death. They scrapped that whole idea, rewrote the third movie completely, or at least rewrote any parts that he might have existed in that one. So that's like one scenario. Easiest thing is you don't try and move forward. There's been other movies that
Well, not the someone that has done it, but someone who has to do it and is in the process. Black Panther 2.
Mm.
gonna be
Very similar situation, if not. They're going to have to deal with the death of T'Challa to move forward, and supposedly they've already been. I mean, not to get too far into another movie,
sure.
reports that they, obviously are going to show a funeral for him or whatever. But I was thinking about that when y'all started talking about this at the beginning, because
Yeah,
that's something Black Panther 2 is going to have to deal with. Because they said they're not going to recast him; they're going to move on with the characters they have, and so yeah.
and
yeah.
even so, do they? throughout the movie will they keep sort of using him as either a plot point? I mean, you can't do it exactly like this. I'm not trying to
No,
say that
right,
by
sure.
any
Yeah.
means, but
But
it's
that
just
has to deal with the
going to be
situation. Yeah.
absolutely. And is it still going to be a component of the movie from beginning to end? I can't think of another movie that's done that. Perhaps, maybe the final Star Wars movie,
Carrie
Episode
Fisher, yeah,
9 with Carrie Fisher,
The
but
Hmm.
Rise
yet
of Skywalker.
yeah, but yet they didn't try to do and they didn't try to do much, right? They had some
Right.
old footage. I think they did do a few deep fake scenes,
Yeah.
but
At the
Carrie's
flashback. Yeah.
Carrie's character, Princess Leia, I can't remember. She's not really like a big focal point, right?
No,
They didn't try
Not
and
not the
too
big. I
much
mean,
with
she's
the
important, but
focal
not
point.
like the focus of it. Yeah.
They
absolutely. So
also used
it,
her as a deep fake in Rogue One. Let's not forget that.
that's
Oh
true.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
So in I think it's astonishing, and I don't know if it's getting as much of a spotlight on it. Trying or not trying, but putting the character of an individual who's passed as the main focal point from beginning to end. I can't remember another time that's happened, and I can't remember another time where it's going to be done this well. I think
Yeah.
it's
I
a
was gonna.
huge challenge to try and do that, and you're setting yourself up for failure trying to do that. But you made it work, and it deserves
Well,
praise for it.
we can get into what helped make it work so much
Sure.
as we continue talking about the movie, because several people that uh, deserve credit for their
Oh,
roles in this.
yeah. First of which, Phoebe, who is played by McKenna Grace.
McKenna Grace.
Everybody's talking about her, loving her performance in this movie, and I'm gonna
Loved
kind
her
of
jokes. Her jokes were on point.
Yes,
love the dad jokes.
Oh
yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, this first hour I think most people is actually really slow. And I agree it's slow. It's like a slow build up. It's sort of like a mystery that's being unraveled because something is haunting her room and she's following it via the PKE meter. So I kind of like how she's discovering everything. Who her grandfather was, what he did, what was he trying to prevent, all of that. It takes steps towards finding out what's the real thing going on. I really like the slow burn in this one because I am entertained along the way. I think for a new audience, new generation, you have to kind of explain what these people did before and how things
Right.
work to a certain extent. And I'm totally fine with that. So, slow burn, I'm going to admit that for the first like hour of this movie, but I'm appreciating it because, like Joe said, the jokes are great. The comedy's there. There's not a whole lot of action sequences in this movie in general, because it's Ghostbusters. There's not very many explosions or like fight scenes in a Ghostbusters movie, but I love what they give us, even if it's just a chase scene with this new ghost that's called Muncher later on towards the middle of the film. I really appreciate it.
yeah,
Mike, McKenna Grace's performance this first hour, your thoughts
yeah.
about it. How do you feel about the whole
Well,
thing?
and I obviously, we talked a little bit after the movie that when we saw it that evening,
Yeah.
but it has a real '80s vibe to it, but here's what I find interesting, and I know it's easy to say, oh, it's got a Stranger Things vibe because they literally have one of the kids,
Yeah.
but taking it out of New York City and moving it to a rural town is to me what actually helped the '80s aesthetic, because if you
Hmm.
go to modern 2020 New York,
Hmm.
it's 2020 New York. There's cars, there's buildings. If you go to Times Square, it's just a more of a ridiculous light show than it used to be.
Digital
You get a
billboard.
modern vibe. You go to the middle of small town Oklahoma with old vehicles, a drive up diner, pulling out a VHS cassette in the school, all those little things that give it that 80s vibe while still being really in modern time. It's just like, oh, we're just a small town that doesn't have all the technology as abundant. So I really like that. Yeah, but the kid was great. I mean, I think all the kids played their parts pretty well, but her in particular, podcast was really funny too. I saw a video where I didn't even think about it, but comparing if she was Egon's granddaughter, he was like Dan Aykroyd's character was in the original.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Real outgoing, real into conspiracy theories, kind of overexcited about things. And I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. So I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what you were expecting coming into this. But I enjoyed it, uh, even as she's kind of, learning about her grandfather, playing chess with him and not quite realizing it at first, kind of. Um, it's interesting because she knows something's up, but she's not 100% freaked and kind of like,
Yeah.
let me take this logical step. Okay, let me move this, see what happens, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, not afraid of it, even though she doesn't believe in spirits. And then later on, like she tells podcast because he's like, "Aren't you scared?" They're looking at Muncher from afar, and she's like, "Stimulation calms me," or something like
yeah,
that.
overstimulation. Yeah,
Overstimulation calms me, and I'm just like, "This is a funny kid." But yeah,
yeah,
it's they wrote this wonderful character, and you just love like her reactions to just normal, no, not normal things. Her reactions to like every situation is completely different from what you would expect a 12-year-old to do,
yeah,
and that's like half the entertainment is just how she reacts to everything. When she decides like now is a good time to make a joke. Like it's always a weird time, an awkward time, and then sometimes it's just hilarious. The obtuse one, I'm still laughing about that. Not just like her obtuse joke to Paul Rudd's character, but then the wink afterwards. It's just like the very slow one-eye wink, just the very awkward one-eyed wink. Jericho, your thoughts about like the first hour, Phoebe's character, kind of the unraveling of this mystery. I mean, were you going along with it? Were you invested in it? Like your thoughts?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, totally invested. I mean, what I liked about, well, first off, McKenna Grace, she's a great actress. You've
Yeah.
seen her in a bunch of different things, different shows and movies, and um, she always knocks it out of the park. And she didn't, they didn't write her to be this. Uh, I don't want to say stereotypical, but they didn't make her out to, they made her out to be this awkward science kid, the science nerd, and but it wasn't to the point where she didn't want to deal with anybody. Like, I mean, the fact that she even tried to go make friends, and like she kind of gave some pushback, but then podcast kind of pushed his way into her life, stuff like that. But I think she did a really great job. I loved the playing the chess, with her grandpa and not realizing it, like or Mike was saying, not even, freaked out by any means. And it's just the logical part of her mind. The scientific part is trying to figure out like what's going on exactly before I make my assessment, and so I thought that was really cool. Yeah, I mean the dad jokes, everything that she was doing, it makes me wonder: did she come up with these on her own? Did she, try to look them up so that she can have them in her pocket to be able to like throw them out there from time to time? But I thought she was really cool, and just the fact that once she learned who her grandpa is, or I don't remember when she started working on the proton pack. I don't remember if at that point she realized it was her grandpa's spirit, but
Had
just the
to,
fact
yeah.
that again she was just kind of like calm, talking to the spirit and all this stuff, and just very smart, very logical, and again scientific mind, that she just waiting before she trying to figure out what's going on exactly. Um, and yeah, I mean that first hour was great. Seeing Muncher was really cool. I like that they came up with that name like on the spot. That was a really cool name, But I would say the only thing I didn't care for too much was Finn Wolfhard, the brother. I like
Mm.
him in his show. I like him in Stranger Things. I like him in other movies, but it felt out of place with him for me. Like he just almost as if they wrote him in just to have an extra character and to have somebody drive them around. Like he didn't seem, in my opinion, he didn't seem like somebody that put in really their 2 cents and really contributed too much until the very end. I don't know. That's how I kind of saw
no, I
him.
think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think I told somebody that I think me and Mike might have had that conversation. Like, why was Finn in this thing? And I was like, well, I could tell you why. They needed somebody to drive the Ecto.
Yeah,
She's not tall enough or probably old enough to figure it out. They need someone to work on the car.
Plus,
right.
I mean, I think just in the family dynamic, they're two different, almost kind
Yeah,
of opposites. She's, the little scientific nerd, and he's just kind of the typical, you know, teenage guy just going after girls right off the bat as soon as he gets to
yeah,
town. So, I mean, yeah, he doesn't play as an important role to the ghost busting part of it till the end.
right.
Sure.
But yeah, so he drove
I
him
mean,
around.
he had his importance. I mean, the fact that he when they went up to that mountain, it
Right.
was just like randomly threw it out like 10 minutes after being there. Like, oh, I was here last night.
Yeah.
Like it was just kind of weird, but um, yeah, I guess it was important because it brought in the girlfriend or the girl that he was interested in. But outside of that, I was like, they could have just had, you know, maybe give Paul Rudd a little bit more to do or something,
Could always
like have
give Paul
another
Rudd more.
another fumbling character or something. But I was gonna say also just the fact that I don't want to like start bashing on him or anything, but just the fact that he was like this mechanic, as a what was he, 15 years old, and not to say that kids don't know how to fix cars and stuff, but he's a city kid and he knows his way around a car like nothing. If he's this much into girls and stuff, like when did he have time to learn all this? And
Well, he's
dad's
not a
not
smooth
around. You know what I
operator,
mean?
man. He couldn't. He didn't know how to pull the moves. He
That's
was kind of
true.
scared and awkward.
So I
Absolutely.
don't know, just things like that. But otherwise, I thought it was I just love the movie. Like I thought it was great. Let's move on.
I could see that. I could see that. Yeah, like I said, they needed somebody to drive. You can't get Paul Rudd to do it because he's supposed to be sort of courting the mother at this point, and you have the mother trying to create this relationship with Paul Rudd's character, Mr. Gruberson. So they're busy. You can't have them
Hmm.
spend time working on the car, and they wouldn't be driving this kid around chasing a ghost. Like no
Yeah.
parent would do that.
Right.
Even if like my son asked me to do that, I don't think I would say
You
yes.
totally would. I don't know.
I
I
would
don't blame
really
you.
think
You
about
would.
it. I
You
would
would be
really
like, I already have my onesie on.
hold on. My son
Oh
with
my!
back in his hand? No, I don't think so. I'd be like, give it to me. You drive. I will shoot the contact. That's what actually I would say. I'm like, no. I don't trust you with that thing whatsoever. Uh, Joe, your thought about Phoebe, McKenna Grace's character in this first hour, this story, this mystery that we're kind of unraveling together as an audience. Your thoughts about that?
First hour was a slow burn. I'm not gonna lie. Kind of progressed a little too slow at times. But I mean, it's a character build up, trying to introduce everybody. And leading you up to that second act. That finale. Um, I like McKenna Grace's character as Phoebe. I thought she was probably the most interesting character from
Mhm.
this film.
Oh, by
Uh,
far.
Finn Wolfhard just seemed like a supporting cast member at that point in time. His best moments were him just being an awkward teenager trying to fit in the rural small town of Oklahoma, trying to put the moves on the girl that he has a crush on, kind of hanging out, that kind of thing. And that
Doing all the
was
grunt work.
cool to see.
We,
Yeah,
we we've all been there, by the way.
he's planting the seed. I got you, bro. So it's like it's fun to see that. I like that part, the awkwardness between Mr. Gruberson, and Phoebe's mom. That was funny to see. She's like, well, I have a date, I'm gonna go out for dinner, and she's like, with Mr. Gruberson. And she's like, that's kind of gross.
With Gary, you're going out with Gary
Yeah,
Gruberson.
Gary Gruberson. And the funny thing too was that whole introduction of all these characters, the interaction between Egon's daughter, and Mr. Gruberson, kind of running into each other as she's dropping off Phoebe at school, and that's kind of setting things up. They both kind of have the same type of humor, and I think that's kind of
Mhm.
what unites them. On the same playing field, so to speak, is that they like to have fun and they kind of have this wit about them, that they can kind of go back and forth with each other. And to me, that's interesting, even when they were on the date, and they were eating in small town Oklahoma, and they're over here eating, was it shrimp or something, you know?
Yeah.
And she's not really having it. He's just talking about science and science, and she's getting bored. But I think what she sees the redeeming quality of Mr. Gary Gruberson is he thinks the world of Phoebe, you know, and not a lot
Right.
of people really take that time to get to know her daughter. And I think that's kind of what kind of solidifies them and brings them closer together is their mutual love, you know, for Phoebe. And Phoebe's a smart kid, you know. Of course,
Yeah.
she's, you know, beyond her years as far as her poise. You know, she
Okay.
knows a lot. She doesn't act like a typical, you know, kid does. But what does kind of bring things back and grounds things is her awkwardness as well when she's at school. You know, trying to make friends, trying to fit in, just trying to get through the day. And I think that's what makes that friendship between her and podcast so unique and funny
Hmm.
is that he's the outgoing kind of social butterfly kid, you know, and she's the awkward shy one, and it kind of works because they're opposites, you know, and they're both at the end of the day they want to know more and more about what's going on with this small town, and the kid knows a little bit about, you know, the Ghostbusters and whatnot. He kind of starts introducing Phoebe to that, and of course, you know, Mr. Gruberson comes in and starts showing him all the videos that are out now on YouTube, you know, for them to see,
That
and
was
and
trippy
that's kind
seeing
of
that on YouTube.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun to, you know, how they're all setting these things up, and you're getting a little, you know, taste of some of the old gear from the original movie. You're seeing the ghost trap, you know, the meter, you know, the
Yeah.
PKG meter. So you're seeing some of these, you know, artifacts being introduced, and I understand, you know, slow burn, introducing characters, introducing artifacts. You're getting the retro vibe, like Mike alluded to right off the bat.
Yep.
Very very 80s esque, you know. And if you do travel, not only anywhere in the world, but like here in Texas, particularly, or if you've been to rural Oklahoma, or you're going down back roads going somewhere, you're going to run into these towns that are just stuck in time.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, cars are just stuck
Mm.
in time. The vibe is just stuck in time, but you have the modern conveniences, you know, of cell phones and whatnot, internet, computers. But it's just, you know, the way that the town looks. It's stuck in that moment.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what they were going for by taking the film out of the New York scene, trying to really instill that retro vibe
Yeah.
into the
Definitely.
audience and try to tie it more into the original movie from 1984. That's kind of what they're trying to get the audience set up for. So I kind of understand why the retro vibe or the setting was so important to the overall feel of
Hmm.
the movie. So that was good on them, you know. As far as even the set work, the, you know, the sets I enjoyed quite a bit. I enjoyed the cinematography, you know,
Hmm.
all done beautifully. You know, the anamorphic lenses, you're seeing the lights, the flashing of the lights, you know, the
Yeah.
little floaters that kind of hang around when you're using anamorphic lenses, the panning, you know, how they go ahead and pan and they frame shots and whatnot. All that stuff was beautifully done. And I even like the sound effects. You know, I thought the sound was on point as well. And who doesn't want to be in Mr. Gruberson's class? I mean, the dude's showing you Cujo and Chucky, man. It's like,
Oh,
come on,
hilarious presentation.
you know,
I
and the
had a
way he's trying
question
to
though.
explain it to the kids.
I'm curious. What was the school like? Was it summer school
It's summer
or?
It
school.
was
Yeah.
summer school. Yeah.
Yeah, it's summer
And
school.
okay,
That
I guess because
it
he
was
kind
like
of
their
set it
little,
up saying like I don't want to be here as much as they do, but for me it
yeah.
was like as much as he loves science, I would imagine he would have wanted to and take every opportunity he had to teach as much as he could, teach especially random kids that he probably hasn't taught before or whatever. But I was just curious. I was like, is this summer school or
It
something? And
it
and
was a
Phoebe's only
weird
there,
mix. Yeah.
yeah,
Of like he
and
was
because
really
Phoebe was
nerdy,
only
but
there,
yeah.
yeah. Like I know Phoebe was there just to make friends, but I found it was kind of odd that they were just able to just take her in if she didn't have to be there. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
it's
Well,
summer school,
Paul Rudd is a good actor because he's always playing
Yeah.
these geeky, weird kind of roles. You
He
know,
just plays Paul
awkward.
Rudd now at this point. It's just
Yeah,
him.
pretty
it's
much.
Just
It's
him,
just Paul
yeah.
Rudd,
And they're just
sexy
just
like, you
different
know what? We're
optics.
gonna hire you.
Paul
Just
Rudd.
be you.
Yeah.
That's what they tell him. We're
Exactly.
gonna hire you. You go out there and be you, brother. Do your thing.
Sexiest man alive, Paul Rudd. That's all he's playing now these days.
2021. Yep,
2021.
they
Jericho
got all
earlier.
my votes.
Yeah, it was just Jericho hitting Paul Rudd over and over again.
Uh-huh.
You said something earlier about Phoebe, wondering, you made me think about it. When did she figure out this is her grandfather? I don't. Maybe either there's a scene missing, or it was between finding the hidden ghost trap or finding his flight suit with his name on it. Either one of those probably did it,
Yeah.
or there's something missing that we
Well,
got.
isn't it a little bit
I
after
think it
she does
was.
see the YouTube video, and she first of all realizes like kind of who her grandpa was?
Well, not just saying that, but how would she know the
How she realized it was her
Well,
entity?
grandpa
no,
as a spirit.
that's what I mean. I feel like it was kind of a build up of this stuff was happening. I mean, she realizes she's at her grandpa's place.
Yeah.
Then she sees who he was, and I think you're right. Then once she sees the gear and goes down to his little basement, I kind
lair.
of feel like
His
that's when it
workshop.
all kind of clicks for her.
And plus, he did show her his degrees,
Yeah,
That's
and
what I was
of
about to
course it had
say.
his name. So I guess at one point she kind of realized it's him, but didn't realize the impact and like who he was.
yeah.
But
The importance
look,
of it.
there's so many little details to like appreciate, right? She's like, "How did you know how to do all this?" And this whole time, like the lamp's been like slowly panning this way, slowly panning that way. And she drops that question, and the lights just like boom, drop the mic, and she goes, "Oh, I get it. You're a genius." Like, yeah, this stuff is
That
funny, man.
that
Give
was
it.
one thing that I loved about the film too, is like what we were saying earlier. They didn't get somebody to deep fake or superimpose or anything. They didn't get a body double.
Nope.
But this whole spirit, before they even showed his force ghost at the end,
Yes.
I mean, it felt as if he was
Right
there.
up,
It
Virgo. That
felt
was
as if
supposed to be
Egon
for
was
the
there.
end. That was a big reveal.
Oh, my bad. Spoiler alert.
Oh, but
Shut up.
Hope
Somebody
you
shows
pause this,
up at the
guys.
end.
and that's our show.
But that's what.
Yeah.
But that
Yep.
I think that was really cool. Like for me anyway, it felt because we knew who it was. She didn't, but
Yeah.
we knew who it was, and just comparing him to the first two movies, as far as the character goes, you just felt that you felt that it was him the whole time. Like it could have easily been Harold Ramis this whole time behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like if he had not passed, like they could have easily done something like that. And so just the fact that they were able to capture that with just a light, showing a light around and helping her out and stuff.
Kind of like the
I mean,
logo
that's
from
amazing.
Pixar, the little
Yeah.
lamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I was like, oh, okay, they're doing a Pixar thing with the lamp. But one of the things that we overlook is the actual gear itself. And like Ted had said, getting a better look at the actual gear, the proton pack when she's opening it up, and she's saying it's a particle collider, not so much as a particle accelerator or collider, So she's like, well, how did you make it so small? So you're kind of understanding more of the intricacies of how the actual gear works. Okay, it creates a particle, the proton, and it actually gets the bang, and then it projects it as a beam. So I'm like, oh, cool. I get that whole science behind it. So I was like,
That's
that
really
is pretty
cool.
amazing. How he made that so small.
I was gonna go make
Because
one time.
if I'm not mistaken, this is like the first time we've seen pretty much disassembled
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll expand on that in a little bit. So Hasbro came out with the Spangler Proton Pack that was like a big reveal that's been rumored for years that Hasbro would eventually come out with like a 1-for-1 scale Proton Pack. You
Hmm.
can't buy one in stores. The closest we got was a Spirit Halloween store Proton Pack, but it's like a 3/4 scale, 4/5 scale. It's not 1-for-1. So the Spangler Proton Pack that is coming from Hasbro. There's a video with Adam Savage going through it with one of the reps
Nice.
from Hasbro, and wouldn't you believe it? It actually comes apart just like how it did in the movie. You
Nice.
can take
Wow.
off the cover. You can see all the little intricate cables and whatnot.
And
It's
circuitry and
just
fuses and all that.
it's so
That's
detailed. It's
crazy.
it's it's like it's a ghost head, which is a Ghostbuster fan. It's a Ghostbuster fan's dream to have something that's that detailed, that has all the little bells and whistles on it that the movie's always kind of shown you, even from the '84 film. They always had like an on switch
Yeah.
in the elevator scene, which was like somewhere up here, but this is the spirit pack, and it doesn't have anything like that. So it has it on the spending one. I don't want to get off topic, but
Hmm.
it's just
One of the
crazy
things I
that
I
always
guess it's
had a
worth the
gripe with
price then.
do.
one of the things I always had a gripe with is how they always put the wiring on the outside of the proton pack. It's a bad design. You never want to put wiring on the outside. You always want to conceal it. What if somebody comes and gets snagged on something, you know?
They didn't have time to cover
That's-
it, to create a cover. They had to bust these ghosts.
Oh,
there
get a
you go.
3D
There you
I
printer
mean,
and
it
make
wasn't
some
government
covers.
regulated, so they just
Yeah,
no
exactly.
OSHA wasn't involved with those. So
Yeah, I know,
EPA.
man. I'm just saying that's
well,
just being
they got
home
involved, but
slicker.
that's movie one.
There
Oh
you
Yeah.
yeah.
go.
I did want to say one thing real quick because as we start going through the movie, they have a lot of little details
Yes,
and
please.
references. So I watched the movie the night before, and I'm real the first movie before we went to go see it, and I'm so glad I did because they really do like if you go back to and I know Ted, like I know you're a big Ghostbuster fan, but if you think back to the first movie, I mean, you're just kind of like you like it, but you're not like hardcore. When they're in the jail talking about the building, like
Oh
you're
Yes.
yeah.
kind of paying attention, but you're probably not really paying attention to everything they're saying about the building, that Sigourney Weaver
Another
lives in,
language.
and the person. Yeah, so you're probably like, okay, they really connect all those little details in this movie
Hmm.
with the Silesium that it was built out of, the Ivan uh,
The mine
Shank,
that it was ordered
the
at.
guy who built it,
Yep.
all those little
Ivor
things.
Shandor.
There you go,
There
Ivor
you go.
Shandor,
Ivor Shandor.
played by J. Jonah Jameson in this,
What?
Yeah.
Where's that
which
guy? Where's that guy nodding? He's in all the
yeah,
franchises now.
seriously.
Star Wars, you're next.
I'm
Yep.
sure he is. But yeah, so like if you watch it, like I was making the joke earlier about the Crunch Bar. If I had not seen that movie, I would have been like, why does I don't remember it. Just a little scene of him going, "You earned this." Bill
Yeah.
Murray's character to
Peter
Egon.
Venkman.
Just a
Says,
random
there you
thing,
go.
but they throw it in there, and it's. I think there's also Twinkies in there somewhere, right?
Hmm.
There's a
In the
Twinkie
in the
Yeah,
glove
there's
box.
in the
Twinkies.
glove
Oh
box.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah. So just tons of little things like that I thought were really cool, and I'm
Uh,
really glad I watched movie one before going to see it for
I
sure.
will give myself a little pat on the back. The very first trailer that dropped, and we sort of had a shot of these mines with Evo Shandor on top of it. Me and JC did a trailer review. This is
I remember
20
you talking about this. Yeah, yeah.
2020, early 2020, January 2020, I think is when it.
Probably think before everything went crazy.
Absolutely. So me and JC did the trailer review, and I'm like, that's a mine. I'm like, okay, we exactly what you just talked about, that scene in '84 film where they're talking about the selenium is the core of the girders, and we find out later in this movie that it's like a superconductor
Hmm.
for energy, whatever. So I told JC, like, wouldn't it be something if this is the mine where they actually got the selenium for those girders, and
I
that's what.
remember watching this. I think I remember watching y'all talk about this. Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, yeah, nailed it. That one. Give check one. Check two actually would be that I told JC, like, if this is about Gozer, we know that Gozer needs a keymaster and a gatekeeper. And I said, well, I'm gonna guess that Paul Rudd's gonna be our keymaster, and I figured these kids' mom is gonna be the new
Yeah.
gatekeeper, and that's another thing that happened. And so I'm not gonna try and tell people like this movie is too predictable. I think that as a fan, as someone who kind of knows the mythos, even when it comes to Star Wars or Marvel or DC, you want a story that makes sense. And I just went
Hmm.
with the thing that makes sense. It does if it doesn't happen that way, totally fine. I'm not gonna claim like you didn't go with my fan fiction. But if they wrote a story that didn't make sense, like Finn's character, I know he's the gatekeeper, and like I don't know, some teachers the keymaster. I don't know. Then it would have just gotten weird,
Yeah.
and like I would have been like, this doesn't make any
I was a
sense.
little worried at the end when some people switched. I was just like, "Where are we going here?" But it was just for the okay. It wasn't. It wound up not being a thing.
Yeah.
I was a little worried.
Oh my god. Look, let's. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad that I went back and watched our trailer reviews because we did two of them. I did. We might have done three of them, and so a lot of the theories kind of panned out to be correct. And so I'm like, just like, that's another thing. Like, it just made total sense. They went along with it, expanded on the lore and all that. You brought up references. Listen, some people, I've seen videos, I've seen reviews, I've read them, and it blows my mind that some people are like, there's too many references for Ghostbusters movies. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is the home of Egon Spangler.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like, what are you not wanting to see? What are you thinking is not going to be in the house of Egon Spangler? You're going to have his tools. You're going to have his projects. You're going to have his experiments and all that. When you saw the spores, molds,
I
and
would say,
fungus deal, I'm just like, ah, that's fantastic. I love
but
that.
is do all go symmetrically book stack? Was that him, or was that
Hmm.
the librarian visiting, or
That might, you know what? That's a good question. We don't. It wasn't there before, right? In the opening scene, it wasn't there.
I don't think so. Yeah.
No,
I forget. I'm asking. I if
no,
it's
there
not
was
there,
book stacks. Like when they arrived at the house,
the
there was
kids.
books. Yeah, the
Yeah,
kids.
yeah,
They
but the kids, but
So
not the opening scene.
no, no.
I don't think we see
okay,
that. Yeah.
so then he does that, and you know why he does that? He does that for either Ray or Venkman, because nobody would
Oh,
ever, no normal person would ever stack books like that. He
yeah.
does it as a freaking joke. He's just like, oh, I can't wait to see their faces when they see this stack of books, and they're gonna
Yeah.
know it's him. You're right,
Yeah.
Egon. No mirror or no normal person would ever stack books like this. No, it's fantastic. It's I look, I appreciate those little things, and again, it's Egon's house, so you're gonna
Yeah.
see the books. I mean, the book stack
Yeah.
goes with the thing. The Crunch Bar, the toaster from Ghostbusters 2 is in the kitchen. The dancing toaster. That yeah, so
I
that's
like the death
awesome as
whistle.
well.
We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
That's the death whistle that they had. That pop
Hilarious.
Yeah.
sound. Yeah,
That
that was
was.
pretty funny.
Yes, just don't ever do
What
that
they say,
again.
it was a Peruvian death whistle or something like
Or
that.
Aztec,
Aztec.
Aztec,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hashtag, yeah.
which is a real thing. I heard.
I think it
Hmm.
is. Yeah.
yeah, that shit was funny. He blows on it, and the mom's like, "Don't ever do that again."
I would do that
Can I
again.
have it? Yes.
Yeah, everybody's and that's the funny thing. It's like every time they ask for something, "Can I have it?" "Yeah, sure, go ahead." She's like, "Go ahead. I don't care what it is. Take it." You know,
Uh,
one of the things that we never really understood, but it was funny, is that Egon had that dilapidated barn, and all he just put on there is dirt.
dirt.
You know, dirt, and everybody always assumed, "Oh, you're just a dirt farmer."
Yeah.
It's like you're a dirt
But that was
farmer.
a clue.
Right.
Yeah, because it was
Yes.
hidden
That
in the
was a
dirt.
clue because of the
Yeah,
traps.
Get out
yeah.
of my head, Joe. Literally, my next topic was going to be how I've talked to both some of you guys as well as some Ghostbusters fans, and just how I
Shout out.
appreciate that the technology moved forward. In a good sequel, you have technology enhancements. Think of like Terminator 2, and I'll bring that up again later on. Terminator 2, the bad guy goes from a Terminator, which is a physical thing. Now the villain in Terminator 2 Judgment Day is now like liquid metal, and so like you have enhancements in that. And this new Terminator is a good guy, Schwarzenegger's character, and you kind of see how he works and all that, and how he thinks, and you get to see like what he sees and how he like scans his own body for like backup power in the final scene and all that. Spoiler alert for Terminator 2 Judgment Day. But so a good sequel, you can think of like a dozen of them. A good sequel has technology enhancements going forward. That way, like it doesn't feel too stale. Um, so in this one, that mass trap is one definitely. I kind of feel like I wish they didn't give us the Ecto spoiler. I wish they didn't show us that Gunner chair came out, because I'm like, now that we've known of it for like 2 years, it doesn't have that same surprise. Like it
Right.
Yeah.
worked so awesome in the movie. Like, and so I kind of wish it was the first time seeing it in the movie. Especially worked even better when after they save the mom, they use a trap. Podcast puts the RC trap, which is also great technology thing,
Yeah.
a moving ghost trap. They put the RC trap under a terror dog. They take the terror dog out. The mom's there, rolls downstairs. They pick up the mom, put her in the ecto, and they drive off with her. Well, the terror dog's chasing them, and so Phoebe's talking to her mom, trying to like get her caught up in like 10 seconds. Like, we know. And then she's like, hold on 1 second. Boom.
Yeah.
Just locks back into place. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like, that is so awesome. Like, hold that thought.
Yeah, be right back.
Another small thing, real quick, since you're
So
talking about
awesome.
that, and we talked about the vibe earlier, the
Yes.
'80s vibe. RC, that's an '80s vibe. If this was
Yeah.
2020 New York, it would have been like a drone trap or something.
Yes.
But no, it's still an RC trap. You know, it's still got that '80s vibe to it,
Mike,
Yeah,
which
you
was
genius. The next level is a drone ghost
well.
trap.
That's what if it was modern, it was really
Yeah.
like in big, and the vibe was for
yeah.
modern times. It would have been some sort of remote controlled drone from their phone,
Hmm.
basically.
But we
Yeah.
didn't know how the RC
It would have
car
been an
operated. I
Uber
didn't know
ghost trap.
the thing with the RC cars that they make RC cars that move that fast and they require gasoline motors. This one didn't have any gasoline motor that I could see or hear. So is it all just running off of some type of battery? You
I'm
know,
sure.
you got to charge it. Turn
Yeah,
it off,
I
and
I think
it's
that's the writers taking a little liberty with what an
Yeah.
RC car
Yeah.
can do, but yeah, I
But
got you.
as far as
Banger
coming
making
back to
RC
the
cars.
technology, though, it didn't really progress that much. I mean, we just got to see an upgrade as far as the gunner seat goes to Ecto One. The cool thing, though, is that you're being inside Ecto One, kind of seeing how all that kind of stuff works. We never really got to see that. We only saw Ecto
Hmm.
One in the movies just kind of as a prop, and it was just being the transport vessel, but we never got to see
Yeah.
it from the inside, which was a good thing. I enjoyed that. I
Yeah.
respected that. But as far as like the technology moving forward, it never really did. It kind of just what worked worked. You know, if it worked in '84, it traps ghosts. That's kind of what they rolled with the
Well,
proton packs. They didn't get it really an upgrade, and neither did the ghost traps. They just kind of worked. The only thing is they went ahead and put them in tandem. You know, so they could trap something huge. Okay, I could deal with that. Okay, I get that. You know, but and another thing is if they try to go ahead and make too many upgrades with the gear that a lot of the super nerd fans like Ted, you know, find as religion, it's Bible, it would be sacrilege. Kind of like what they did with the 2016 film. While they did have some cool gadgetry, it was kind of too far off the beaten path that fans really didn't take gravitate towards it. So I
yeah,
kind of
right.
understood with them playing it safe. But if you know, in all this time, I would think Egon would have made a little tweak here or there to the proton packs, but maybe that now falls onto Phoebe, you know? So
I think
I
he
look
made them
forward to that.
smaller. I don't know if they actually said this or if I just thought this in my head, but I feel like he made them lighter and maybe slightly smaller than the original 84 packs. Because Phoebe's character, 12 years old, she's probably 65 pounds. Like the packs in the 84 film are probably 35, 45 pounds. I don't know that for sure. I feel like it's somewhere in that range. The actors hated wearing those. That's how heavy they were. Um, so I feel like whatever Spengler's pack, it has its own name now. I feel like this is an updated pack, but it's way too mind boggling to try and compare like what's the difference and what makes this
Yeah,
thing
Yeah.
different.
and you also got to think in terms of the story. They said they kind of like broke up what about 10 years after everything. It wasn't even like
Hmm.
they kept going up until 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it's like they kind of broke up in the '90s, and he took off to that town.
Yeah,
And
Well,
I'm
he
he's
sure
like,
took
he was
all
doing
the
little
gear.
gadgets, but
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like as a team all their tech just kept upgrading throughout the years. It seemed like kind of
Right.
they broke up after the 10 years. They said he took everything and then just went over there to go.
He probably didn't have the funds to
Well,
really
yeah,
progress it,
probably.
Well,
you know, even further.
we know that we,
It was
we know
Yeah.
all
he didn't
Radio
have the
Shack
funds,
and
and
Well, we know that
yeah,
just looking at his computers and seeing what he had inside
yeah.
his layer. That stuff was
but
CRT. So I was like,
it
okay.
was it was the funds and just the fact that it seemed like he basically used what he could get his hands on, even when he would
Yeah.
go to the hardware store and the the owner or the cashier, whatever, saying that he always bought some weird shit. And
Oh, yeah,
I
that's
mean,
Yeah,
that's
right.
so he
it,
was
like he
making,
bought stuff, whatever they offered
yeah.
in this small town
Right.
USA,
Yeah, he was trying to put
you know.
together whatever he could with being resourceful with whatever he
Yeah.
had around him. That's why in that opening sequence, the ghost traps didn't work. Something happened with the switch. It was faulty, you know. And not only that, but the capacitors that he had, the wiring is commercial. It's not
Mhm.
commercial grade. It's residential, you know. So
Yeah.
something happened where it just tripped a breaker. It just wasn't powerful enough to power the traps. And then when he tried to push on the button, you know, with his foot, nothing happened, and that's when he knew he was basically
But
effed. You
Yeah.
know,
but
damn.
Finn knew. Finn somehow he finally caught on.
He had like one
He was
science
like,
lesson, I think, and
uh huh,
was it
quick brief
right? Wasn't
science
it?
lesson.
What happens? He learns like one thing, or he got told one thing. He's like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was literally that about the conductor or the capacitor,
Yeah,
and then later on he's like,
Capacitors,
oh, in this,
capacitors of that
you
size
know,
need a really big charge to hold that charge
yeah.
for even a
there you
split
go.
second. So I understood the logic and what they were doing in the movie, from a scientific standpoint. I kind of understood the way the tech works. I would have just liked to see a little bit of something else, a little bit more of an upgrade, maybe to the proton pack. Maybe it could have been a little bit more powerful, or maybe it had
We'll
two
see.
beams instead of one. We just never
Well,
know. But again,
Dual wielding.
we hold on, but we all. I mean,
Dual
I know you
lightsaber.
say we didn't see enough. I think, like you mentioned, the 2016, like they took leaps in technology that
yeah, it was too
that
much.
the leaps are too big. You can't take leaps. You have to take steps. It's
No,
kind of
that's
like
what I'm saying. I hope that it's up to Phoebe, to kind of progress
I get
things a
it.
little bit more.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like the Dark Knight. On the fence was when Batman had a gun that was like what you call it, an EMP. It was like a EMP
Hmm.
gun, and I'm like, that's about as far as I'll go with like Batman and technology. Like I'd never seen anything like that before, and for me, it was like it's a little
But
weird. Like
shark spray is okay, Ted.
Yeah, shark spray
Shark spray is fine.
really good.
absolutely, my point
Well, there's
was
no
that
electricity in the shark spray. I mean,
That's true.
my point was that we also get this awesome scene where in this mine and there's this Gozer temple, you actually had a contraption that would have these four proton packs cross the streams in order to keep this Armageddon type event from happening that would release Gozer.
But
So it's like
they had electricity in the mine, Ted.
solar
Hey,
panels, if you will.
Egon,
These
Don't
packs,
Egon got
ask,
it all
don't
set
ask.
up.
Right?
we know. No, no, no. Like, we
well,
know that the proton packs, because Egon told us, like the
and
battery life of these proton packs has like a 500-year
yeah.
lifespan or something
But
like
they
that.
have to charge them, even though that they can hold a charge.
No, I'm
They still
telling
have to
you
be
that
charged.
in '84 he told us the battery life is like half a thousand years
Yeah,
because
the
of psych.
battery life, not the actual capacity of the battery itself. They still have to be charged.
Okay, I believe you, but
But maybe he did. So that could be,
true.
say, a plot hole that
He had
She
we
had a
didn't get
charging
explained.
source.
That.
You
hold
had
on.
an energy source in the
He had
mine.
only died 2 years before, so he could have been charging
Hmm.
these things along the way. It's only been 2 weeks.
He would have to go there just about every day.
He had nothing else to do. The dude was
He
retired.
built everything that he built. I believe that he had time to charge them or find a
The,
way for
he
them to get
only
charged.
died 2 weeks before, so like he could have been doing all the things that you said. The
Hey,
maintenance. It takes maintenance, and he was there enough
Hmm.
to do it.
Joe Lamplight, your PhDs from Ivy League schools. I mean, he
Oh,
Lamplight. He
easy,
showed
right
it when
back
he. No, I'm
there.
just kidding.
I'm just saying, dude. I'm
No,
just
I
trying
know.
to
I'm just
think
kidding.
logically, logically,
Yeah,
or with the power source. That's all I'm saying.
Logically, all I'm
it's
saying is the power source, maybe it had a 3 week lifespan after he died, and they were still within that 3 week window. He had only died 2 weeks before, so he could have been doing the maintenance up until then, and
And
then
Ted's
do
gonna
it.
go ahead and just like bat for Egon no matter what, dude.
It's
well,
Egon's
no, I
crime.
mean,
Egon's crime.
I'm just
I
saying. I was
agree.
just curious. That's what I was saying.
It is
I
good.
agree, but
Good question.
it's one of those things where I've never seen a movie where it explains every single thing that you've seen on screen. And I think this is case in point to we don't know if it was 500 years that it keeps a charge, or is it just that the battery is good for 500 years, but you still have to charge it.
Yeah.
And
Even the
if it is
containment
that
grid,
point,
like the containment
what's
grid
that?
they used in the
Yeah.
1984 movie, it encaptured or it entrapped the ghost because they were using some type of a laser field, you know. So when they would put the ghost trap in there and it would eject it, the way that it would keep the ghost in that containment unit is that they would lower the shield or the force field made by lasers
Hmm.
and then raise it back up again. So they were doing some crazy stuff with uh, spatial,
That made sense. Though.
mentioning
We're just
like
asking questions about like
I'm
lifespan
just
of a
saying they were
battery.
doing some
But you
crazy
go
stuff,
along with
dude.
that.
Hey,
I
But they were
Ted.
agree.
connected to a
I
power
agree.
source, right? They were connected
Yeah.
to a power source.
Okay,
And over here
Ted.
they weren't. So I was just saying, like, okay, so how did they power up the proton packs? And they had to keep on like shooting every so many hours to keep this thing at bay. That's what was creating the earthquakes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was hours. I would say Paul Rudd told us it happens daily. So I'd say
Yeah.
once a day it was happening up until Mr. Gubertson let the terror dog out of the trap. Then I think it started accelerating. It started happening more often because
That's another thing that was
Eh,
interesting to me too. When you set the terror dog, Ted, and he let him out of the trap, he
yeah,
already had trapped that terror dog. So that means that he was already at the mine, and he had purposely went after one of them, and that's probably why the Sentinel was chasing him in that opening sequence.
he went
mhm.
after he went so again, I'm not trying to tell you I know exactly what happens here.
Yeah.
But this ugh, the thing in the trap is Zool. I'm almost certain. That's probably Zool. They released Zool, and now that Zool and Vince Clortho, which is the other terror dog, is around somewhere, he's just not doing shit because he's lazy as f. Now that they're both out, now they can both find hosts because you can't just have one without the other. I guess it's stupid to possess one person. It's stupid to possess the keymaster without the gatekeeper even being allowed to. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. Zool was in the trap. They released Zool, and then now that they're both free, they can go find a host and really wreck shop.
Because the other one was still trapped in the mine, right?
I was
That's
hanging
why
out. Man.
eventually part of the rock broke off and he saw the red eye.
Okay, so listen, I'm not trying to tell you guys I know the answers. Listen, but no, but you bring up a
I
good
thought you're
point.
the ghost head, man.
No, listen, Vince Clortho, which is the other terror dog, right?
Okay.
Is that the one that kills Egon, or is it just another ghost entirely that's known as a Sentinel that kills Egon? Because if Vince Clortho is free, is he not free to have a host? Because he takes over Paul Rudd's character, which is the thing that breaks the proton pack trap, which allows the Armageddon event to happen for these ghosts to come out of the
Right.
woodwork. So yes, there may be some rules that we're not told about here.
Can
Um,
we ask? Can we talk about the cringy moment in the film?
is there one?
There is a big one, dude.
What is it?
Look,
Which one?
man, the gatekeeper, the mom,
What do you
right? She
mean?
gets possessed by the spirit, and then she starts,
Love this scene.
dude, man, she's coming after podcast. I'm like, dude,
Oh,
you just crossed the line. You know,
that's
I'm like,
hilarious. No,
that
no,
was
that's hilarious.
cringy. That was cringy, dude.
Well, let's first start out by saying another. It's a great scary moment. This made me jump the biggest is when the terror dog comes out of the kind of the shadows, and bravo for them to still making this somewhat of a horror film and have these kind of jump out of your seat moments. There's probably 3 or 4 of them, I think, where they kind of throw those in there. And I just love that after the mom like fails to hit on podcast, and just
Jeez.
the fact that they're doing the thing again where Dana was possessed and acting like a dog, doing all that again, cool. I like that because I'm like I'm familiar with this. I know how this works. Do not get close to her, and they do it. And in my head, I'm like, stop, get away. Nobody thinks this is a bad idea. She takes off running to find Paul Rudd's character, and I love that he's just like, "You look beautiful," and then she starts talking in like terror dog speak. She's like, "Arr, arr, arr, arr," and he goes, "Thanks." This is so
But
funny, and then he gives her a
I,
flower and
I,
she eats it. I love the comedy in this movie. I
I
give
do too.
credit to
Yeah.
Jason Reitman. Jason Reitman, I'm assuming just knows comedy and has a great eye and ear for comedic timing. Because a lot of these jokes, a lot of these moments, if it's too short of a time or if there's too much time that you kind of wait on, it falls apart. It has to
hmm,
be like at this exact space of time that you're using this comedic moment. So
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
edited masterfully, and a lot of these jokes work just because somebody on this set or the cinematographer, the editor has great comedic timing. It's a lot of films in the 80s are like that. It's just about like how long let the joke sit or how long you wait to cut to the next person in the scene. Like it's all just those little things.
Yeah.
It's
Somebody
creative
there
editing.
felt it.
Creative editing.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
yeah, creative editing. I said
Well,
editing.
it's got to be easier with Paul Rudd too. I mean,
Oh,
he's just so not like anything he does just comes across comedic anyways. But yeah, like with Phoebe with her jokes, they were timed so well because they were just so awkward almost every time.
Yeah.
Like it was bad timing because they were timed so well
yeah.
of awkwardness. Yeah. So, um, but just in reference to the mom and podcast, I get came across a little creepy, but it's kind of in line with what Zool does because it's like Zool doesn't really recognize human beings and differentiate. They're just looking for the. I always mix it up. She's looking for the
Keymaster.
keymaster, right? She's the gate. Yeah, right. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my
Um,
favorite jokes that Phoebe said made me just bust out laughing in the theater was she says, "Why can't you trust an atom?" And they're like, "Why?" Because they're everywhere.
They make up everything.
They
they
make
make
Yeah.
up everything.
Make
everything.
Yeah.
up everything. Yeah, it's like that shit's funny, man. But they make up everything, yeah, because they make up everything.
But yeah,
That's
like
hilarious.
Mike was saying, I think from a human or whatever, a real life aspect, yes, that was weird and odd, and they could have easily been. But there was no other adult for her to hit on, like other one would have been Paul Rudd. So they picked, and it would have been just as weird if it was her own son, that she was doing this
Mm.
to. So why not go for the kid? They stopped it pretty quickly. It was still weird and cringy and almost like, did they have to include that? But again, the cast was so small, as far as like main characters, that
Yeah.
they had to kind of do it that way. And
Yeah.
it they had to. I mean, it was just it's Zool's, like Michael was saying, it's Zool's characteristic to do that. And yeah, Zool doesn't see humans or age or male, female, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, are we gonna
Uh,
start getting into our score or grade, our number that we're
Not
gonna
yet.
give this thing?
Not just yet. Not just yet. We're almost
okay.
there. Go ahead,
I was
Mike.
going to say one thing I do want to add, and this kind of goes back to Joe talking about the beautiful cinematography. As we get to the end of this and we get to the final stuff, I love how the camera pans on the terror dogs and on Gozer when Gozer comes out, because we've seen this before, but it's like when they take an old video game and remaster it, and like like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, when you see the 64 version, you see it now on like the modern consoles, and it's the same game, but it just looks better. They pan and you see the modern technology of how good the dog looks. Or they pan real close to Gozer, and I think maybe Jericho, maybe you were talking about this, like it had the glowing like
yeah,
midsection lights or whatever, and it just everything, like they panned on all these things and go, you remember these things, but look how nice they look now, with modern CGI or the modern camera. Like they just kind of like panned around the dog, panned around Gozer. I really thought that was cool.
Yeah, the camera work was
definitely.
amazing in the movie.
Yeah.
They did a lot of
Well,
stuff with the gimbals, and probably the red cameras on the gimbals. So kudos
Yeah.
to them.
and Dan Aykroyd said too how they use a lot of practical effects for the film too. So I think that helped quite a
Absolutely.
bit. Yeah,
Mhm.
I thought that was very cool.
Ton of practical effects, and you can tell the terror dog in the Walmart. I mean, it's not CG. They built that damn thing,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
it looks gorgeous. Also, another great sequence. I wish they didn't release that scene into marketing or promos, because that's great. Paul Rudd like gets scared. He throws the Baskin Robbins ice cream and it hits it in the head, and then
Baskin Robbins always finds out.
always finds out. Listen,
They should not have
probably
released the Stay Puft. That they should not have.
no, they
That
shouldn't have.
Yeah,
yeah,
that would have been great to just see for the first time in the movie.
They shouldn't have.
Yeah.
There's so many great things. I talked about the gunner chair. Like that should have been
Yeah.
kept secret.
Hmm.
And it's not even a fault of this movie. I think there's just so many great things that we got.
So
Like
many
it's
little
hard
Easter
to
eggs they
choose.
wanted to show the fan base.
yeah.
It's
Other
hard to choose
callbacks and yeah,
between not to
Yeah.
show because there's so many great things. I had to call this out because I think I laughed the hardest earlier when he releases the terror dog Zool probably from the ghost trap, and it like destroys all the windshields right in the near radius and stuff, and then they're driving away later, and that windshield is broken, and
Yeah.
Button is like enjoying the wind.
Like a
I'm laughing
dog.
my I'm laughing my ass off, and I totally forget about it. So later, when Paul Rudd's running out of the Walmart,
Yeah.
he doesn't go for the door handle; he dives through the front windshield. And I'm laughing
That was
so
genius.
hard, and then you don't
That
even need
was.
to make another joke after that because I'm laughing, and then they have the terror dog sit on the car and the tires, the air goes out of the tires, so it's just like so good, so good. Let's get to the final act of this movie, and it's gonna sound weird that I'm gonna praise it so much, but its final act of this movie I think is absolute perfection, and it's gonna be hard to trying to keep this down to like a few minutes from me talking. But we get to this final scene. We already talked about them saving the mom. They get back to the farmhouse, and the whole plan is to set off this mass, I don't know, 100 trap ghost trap deal, and it doesn't work out. But everything that happens from here on out, I think is complete perfection. Absolutely would not change anything one bit, and it's very rare that I will say that I've had an emotional reaction as strongly to this as anything else that I've witnessed. The only other time I've had such a strong emotional reaction, and I'm talking about when Phoebe is sort of hand to hand blasting the proton pack and Gozer is shooting back with her red lightning something, and they're in a battle, and Phoebe's getting pushed back. You see her sliding across the dirt. There's only one other moment I can think I've had an emotional reaction this strongly when we first see Egon as the camera kind of rolls around and Egon's holding it. And that would be when we got, I'll go ahead and say Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker in the finale of season 1 of The Mandalorian. There, these are the two moments I can say honestly in my life that I've ever witnessed anything that has resonated so strongly with me. And I think it comes from a place of improbability. It was 99.99% we would ever see, never see Luke Skywalker in his prime, let alone Mark Hamill, because Mark Hamill we all know is, already is late or mid.
Up there.
He's
He's
already
up
past
there.
his
He's
prime.
in
Yeah.
his 60s, I think. So the
Reboot sequel
improbable.
trilogy.
So I think it comes from a place of improbability. We were never going to see Luke Skywalker in his prime, like we always hoped for, because those decades have gone and went. And I never expected to see Egon Spengler on screen again. Not in the way that we got him in the beginning. That was also very dope. But seeing Egon as a hero, we saw him fall as a hero. We didn't see him in this light.
Mm.
So I can honestly tell you, I was a mess. I completely
No,
lost it the
Dude,
first time
same.
I
you were
saw this
falling.
part. I listen. I told I forget who I told Brian Ortiz, who's the founder of the Ghostbusters chapter of the fan club in San Antonio. Before the movie started, I kind of overheard these things like it's a very emotional movie, and I told him like, hey, if you want to talk after the movie, we were in the same theater by accident for the first showing. I told him like, hey, if you want to talk after the movie, I'm going to be back here. I'm going to be the bumbling mess in that corner. And sure enough, I was an absolute wreck. Did not know this was coming. I had no idea this was coming. Did not expect it. Never in a
Not
million
at
years
all.
did I think
Mm-mm.
they would do that because it's so easy to do it wrong. It's so
Mm-hmm.
easy to put a actor's character on screen who's no longer with us and it come off disrespectful or just come off in this like a negative light. I'm not really sure. I feel like it's a big
It,
challenge, but they
it
did it.
is because
They
it could
pulled it
easily
off.
be seen as like a cash grab, or
Right.
like a cop out.
Easy could be, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't expect anybody to take that chance, to take that risk. Not only did they do it, they had the balls to do it. They risked it all to go for it, and it worked. It worked beautifully. I never in a million years thought this was going to happen. I absolutely loved it. This ending is perfection. I can't
And
imagine them doing it any other way.
not only the fact that we get to see him again, but it just wrapped everything up.
Ah,
You know, the mom, I think her name was Carrie, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
She, for years, had
Callie,
this hatred towards him. What
Hmm.
was it?
Callie,
Callie. You know, she had this hatred towards him for leaving them when she was very young, and
Ray.
only to find that, yeah, and Ray too, only to find that he had not a single picture in the house, but all his, you know, precious memories and the fact that he was keeping up with her is in his workshop where he does like that's where his focus is.
So he spends most
And
of his time.
yeah, and the fact that he had pictures everywhere, it was that. It was um, the fact that Phoebe, who felt out of place for many, what it was, she 12 years old, now suddenly has that connection, and in the final battle, is being supported by her grandpa, you know,
Ah,
and I was getting emotional. I was just like,
ah,
oh, and then the fact that the mom got to go and hug her dad, and
ah.
the fact that he didn't have to speak, he didn't, you know, he didn't, again,
Man, I
didn't
was
speak or
soft,
anything like
dude. I didn't
that.
even shed one tear, man. I was all right.
It, it was
I was
just
all right.
like for me losing my dad, and if I had that moment, oh man, come on,
Yeah.
like I would be a wreck, and that's I was a wreck during the movie. I'm actually gonna start right now.
Oh
Um,
no.
but but seeing all that, and then the guys, I
Oh
mean, they all ended
Yeah.
on bad terms. You know, they ended up, or seeing them for one thing, sure, that was emotional to
yeah.
see them. I expected them at some point to show up, you know, whatever, like, and not because the trailer kind of ruined it by
Yeah.
hearing, what was it, hearing Bill Murray's voice. Um, but just the fact that they all ended on bad terms, you know, they didn't understand why Egon stole all this equipment. Turns out it was for a greater purpose, and then now they're reunited with him, and they got to give their piece, you know, and now everything they bury the hatchet completely. Like, oh, like they could have just done an easy tribute at the end of the film, but no, they had to go and do this and just beautifully wrap up the film and
Right.
30 years of anger and everything, you know, and unanswered questions. So that was amazing.
Yeah, it's just
Holy
a
crap,
shame
that
that
was amazing.
we never got any other films beyond just Ghostbusters 2 at
Yeah,
that point in time where you still had the actors in their prime where Murray could have still portrayed a really good Peter Venkman, you know, because Peter Venkman's like the personality of the group, and
yeah,
Egon's very subtle and his jokes and his mannerisms and stuff. Even in the first film, when you go back and you see just what a comedic genius all these actors were on screen.
hmm,
Aykroyd, you know, Murray, you know, then you have Egon, for example. The one scene that always gets me, that makes me laugh so much, is when they're in the elevator and they're going up in the elevator, and he's like, you know, we haven't tried these proton packs out, and he goes, I blame myself, and then
Bateman goes,
Dan
I never
Aykroyd's
do.
like, go ahead and turn me on, and he
Oh,
turns him on, and right away he starts sliding. He's like, I don't know if this thing's gonna explode or what, you know. So there's a lot of little things that they do that were really funny, you know, and it's hard to recreate that chemistry from the first film, you know, and
yeah.
you have to have the same actors and you have to have that same cohesiveness. Second film did a great job as recreating that again, you know, because you had the actors and whatnot. But then,
And
you
that's
know,
the thing.
no, I'm saying it
I'm sorry. I
now.
was gonna say that's the thing too, is the fact that all three guys just agreed to come back, and for years I know they've done interviews and they said the only way we would come back is if they had an amazing script
Yeah,
and everything that they agreed with, and the fact that Reitman was able to do this, Reitman, and I think just the fact that they got them all back, not just, you know, a stand-in for, you know, Winston or whatever, or Ray, um, and they, because that also shows just how much they love the Ghostbuster franchise as well.
Yeah.
yep.
You know, like
no,
they know what it means to the community, and the fact that it means so much to them to come back, regardless of pay or anything like that. Like they were there for what, 5 minutes of screen time? You know,
yeah.
maybe less than 10,
Man,
if that. You
Ernie
know,
Hudson
so
still looks good, dude. Like the dude looks like he's in great shape, you know?
He's
Yeah.
in way better shape than I am. I've met him in person. He's
Yeah.
hey, they've had to carry those proton packs all this time. You know.
That's how you do it. All right, let me put this
Hmm.
on and start walking around outside.
Yeah.
Mike, your thoughts about the final act, man?
Yeah, no, I admit I got a little emotional too. When you like you said, when you see that hand steady, uh, steady the granddaughter, I was like,
Maybe.
oh, okay, because like you said, we saw that kind of like the back of him in that opening sequence, and
Hmm.
from afar with dark shadow over his face, so you don't completely see him. Like, okay, that's cool, and you see like the stuff moving, but to get the full, I mean, like you like you joked earlier, the full Jedi ghost
Hmm.
um, version. But like you said, no speaking, so they didn't have to do that. Just it worked really well, and they, whatever they did to capture that. There's that little look he has from way back in the '84, that little smirk,
Yeah.
and you just see that on
Yeah.
his face a little bit too, and you're like, oh god. And and we've talked about it the whole show, but the Phoebe just such a great. Like like when you say someone's kids, like, oh man, they're just like their parent. Well, just like their grandparent, but just that same kind of social awkwardness, that he had in those original movies.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was great. It was emotional to see them again, and then there was kind of that prologue where they all got a little bit of time with some things, and like I was telling, or I was asking Ted, I guess, like I don't know if they're setting stuff up or they just wanted to show like they did Sigourney Weaver and Bill Murray with the electric shock thing, but this time it gets turned on
Yeah.
Venkman and we haven't even talked about Janine in the whole thing. She played a
Yeah.
somewhat pivotal role in telling and do we have more information on who Egon has a kid with?
We don't.
We
Right?
don't.
Like
That's
They
exactly what
never
I was
mentioned
talking
it.
with Ted about. They
I
never
feel like
revealed the
maybe
mom.
that's a future movie. I don't know. Like
You
maybe
you
if they
to- you totally could. You totally could, and I think that is an element of great writing. If you leave that open, you can go back and you can fill in those gaps, and you could put in those things, and you can leave it for a thread that you kind of continue with later on. Is it what they're really trying to do? I don't know. I think they just had a solid script, and
they did.
Yeah.
you don't need any more characters, right? Like, we have the
Right.
kids, we have the mom, we have Paul Rudd, and that's all you needed, and you got through an entire movie with just these 6.
Yeah.
Like, and it's pretty phenomenal that we're not having to figure out, like, who all these other characters are that you're bringing in for no reason, like, nobody else needs screen time because this is all we really need to deal with. And so it's smart. It's smart that you're just keeping the cast list really small, and we're just
Hmm.
spending time with these people
Yeah.
because it can get, you can waste time with people all day long, I think, and we're not trying to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
I was
And
telling Ted, how cool would it be if you find out in a flashback scene or something that Callie's mom was actually working with Egon side by side to maybe make that radio controlled ghost trap,
hmm,
things of
yeah.
like of that nature. That would be
hey, that'd be
pretty
dope.
cool, to kind of like, hey, this is something that they worked on together, and even showing her
I don't
maybe
know
she
if it would.
was a Ghostbuster as well, helping Egon.
Yeah. I
I
don't
don't.
know if it would work out that way because I would imagine her mom stayed with her since Egon's the one that left,
Yeah.
and I mean basically raised her. So I would imagine. I mean that's a cool concept. I just don't see how it would work though. They could somehow
Yeah.
write it. Maybe
I mean, they
maybe
could just
before
say,
they
hey,
had kids.
yeah, before, like, hey,
Yeah.
we worked on this together, but he still
Yeah.
continued to use it.
But that's the thing though. So in the timeline, like in the first movie, Janine's kind of into Egon,
Hmm.
like in a few scenes, but they don't really do anything with it. And then
Right.
if I remember the second movie, Janine's at least hanging out with Rick Moranis' character.
Yeah.
A lot.
They're kind of dating, right? But yeah, so am I remembering something or did I watch a video separate? Is there a flashback scene with Janine and Egon at
At
some point?
at the
Was
end
that in
of
the
the movie,
movie?
yeah.
That's in
At
the
the at
the
the very
second.
end when they show the coin.
That's a second post credit
Okay,
scene,
okay, that's
and
what it was.
that's a deleted scene from the '84 film that they decided to use, and it
Okay, there you go.
fits. And they update it a little bit. It doesn't look that old at the footage,
Right.
so it good on them. And then, like you talked about, with using Winston Zeddemore as a sort of businessman tycoon, It's establishing, I think, in my opinion, it's establishing a an answer or source for building a foundation for future sequels. This is your Tony Stark. This is
Yeah,
your
financial
unlimited
backer.
financial support going forward.
Yeah.
He's going to buy back the firehouse, which wasn't a Starbucks, like Ray told us.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't understand
he,
that.
somebody asked, like, how did the Ghostbusters get from New York to Oklahoma in like 24 hours? Did they really decide to do that? And I'm like, we just found out like Winston is a probably billionaire, or at least up
100
there,
millionaire.
something like that. Fortune 500 CEO.
Yeah.
He can fly
Yeah.
these guys out on a private jet that he owns because he has like 10 of them probably.
Yeah.
So not out of the realm of possibility that they figured that part out.
Well, I
But
mean, you
it
see it
is.
driving on the bridge at the end. Like, I'm sure
Oh,
somebody, like, he
was
had
it him?
somebody pick it up.
He had somebody drive. It wasn't even him because he's
Yeah.
at the firehouse.
He's the
Yeah,
CEO. He wasn't
exactly.
driving that.
Yeah, but we
Oh,
don't know if
I
that's
was
the
so
family though.
hoping for Louise Tully to come out of that driver's seat, man.
And
You
Rick
do
Moranis is
that?
not coming
Oh, that
back, dude.
sends me over the moon, bro.
Yeah.
Rick
Oh,
Moranis
man.
is not coming back. You know,
No,
Relax.
he's
Back.
he's
He's doing all
coming
right.
back to a few things, hasn't I heard
He's
recently?
done a few things, but yeah, I mean, he took
He's
a
gonna
long
do the
break.
next
Sure.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie
yeah.
Nice.
with, I think, Josh Gad is going to be the new dad. His son, I think,
Oh,
is what's
wow.
Oh,
going to happen.
okay. Real quick, mentioning that name. So I saw on Twitter that Josh Gad is Muncher, right?
Yes,
He
But
did.
there's
Can I?
another actor that plays Muncher as well.
Is there?
Yeah, there's two listed. There's what's his
I think
name?
I think
Greg
somebody from
Greg
the visual
Turkington and
aspect of
Josh
it.
Gad.
So here's my question. It doesn't talk. What
No,
did Josh Gad do for it?
Just the voice of
The
it,
The
the special,
sounds?
the
it's just the
mounting. Yeah, the
sound.
sounds.
Okay, can
Just
I be honest?
yes,
Could any voice actor have done that? Like, I like
Anybody
Josh
could.
Gad. I'm not trying to trash on him, but
you
it's
can do
kind of
that.
like Vin Diesel and Groot.
Yeah.
It's
I'll,
so modulated and changed to not even recognize. Like, does it
Bi-
And
matter?
Groot.
Bill Hader
I was
did
just gonna bring
BB-8.
that up.
Yeah,
Does
like he
what?
made beeps and
Oh,
BB-8.
yeah.
Yeah, like he
Why?
made beeps and whistles.
Just to
Yeah,
say you're part of the movie, or
Nobody else could do it, bro.
yeah.
no. No
Nobody.
one beeps and boops like Bill
You
Hader.
know,
Let me tell you,
they also
he's like
have
a
a
modern day
video
Michael Wilson.
yeah, on the cast, on the supporting cast, right? Like the cast that they have listed on online. You know, when you go and check it out for
Yeah,
Ghostbusters
Mhm.
Afterlife, they have Olivia Wilde listed on there. I don't remember seeing her in the movie.
she's
She's
Gozer.
Gozer.
She's the
Ah,
body double
okay.
Yeah,
for.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
who
they
she was.
kept that
Okay.
secret good.
And
I
then the
I
voice.
I can spot those cheekbones anywhere, bro. I know
Hmm.
I love you, Wild.
Yep.
What was her name on? What was she on House at the beginning? 11 or something like that.
Oh gosh, I have no
Did y'all ever
idea.
watch House?
I
No.
Never saw it.
early
Okay.
seasons. Oh man, cool. Listen, I think we can talk about details of this movie for hours, but there's
Yeah.
no way we can put that on a podcast. So let's go ahead and get to our Geekcast rating. This is how it works: 1 to 5 rating. 1 being, I don't know, Ghostbusters 2016, and then 5 being Ghostbusters 1984. However you want to do that. Listen, if anybody asks me, I tell them the same thing. 2016 movie was good. It was entertaining. It just didn't feel like it had reached the potential of what the franchise can reach. And this Afterlife movie is just more in line of what the potential for the franchise is.
You
So if you ask me, I'm never gonna say I hated 2016. I'm never gonna say it was
okay.
bad. It was actually good. I laughed. I was entertained, but I wanted more. And this is more in line with what I think we can get from this franchise. So there you go. Geekcast rating, 1 to 5 rating. Jericho, let's start with you, man. What's your Geekcast score?
Oh, start with me. Um, Out of 5, and this is probably one of the highest I've given. I'm gonna give it honestly about a 4.5.
Wow.
Yeah, like I know I was giving you a hard time saying, "Oh, it's Ghostbusters 1 30 years later," but I mean, just listen to our discussion alone. Like it was a great movie. And I think what sealed it for me was all the Easter eggs and callbacks and everything, but also just the respect that they gave Harold Ramis and Egon, the send off. I mean, who knows if he'll come back, but I mean, maybe not since he disappeared at the end, but
Yeah, he's
just
one
the
with the
send
force.
off was great. Yeah, exactly. So and just the emotional aspect of it at the end there, and it sets up for a whole new generation, but and sequels and everything. So I'm not hoping that they do 4, 5, 6 more films, but one or two more I think would be pretty cool. But overall, I mean, it was a great film. Ivo was the only person that it was just weird, like he was there and
Sure.
still intact and everything. Like I don't know, but outside of that, and of course, like we mentioned, Finn, Wolfhard. Besides that, I thought it was a great film. I wouldn't change anything about it, or nothing enough to make me give it a lower rating. So 4.5 for me. It was awesome.
Mike.
I think I'm going to match Jericho with the 4.5. A lot of the same reasons he said. Also, I mean, anything with Paul Rudd and me generally starts at a 4, anyways, right off the bat. His his comedy is just it's just great, and then on top of that, the granddaughter really carried
Hmm.
a great part of this movie. Just really fun, and yeah, like I'll say real quick for me for 2016, um, what I didn't get about it, or it didn't really feel like it made sense, was you say this is Ghostbusters 30 years later. I felt like they were trying to reboot or redo the same movie with their cast, but 1984 is a classic, and it's like I don't want
Yeah.
to see a redone version not as good of something that we already love. I
Yeah.
think that's where it's. I know obviously the big thing was like, oh, so you don't like it because it's an all female cast. No,
Right.
but on a personal note too, and I know this was a lot. They were a lot bigger at the time. I was kind of hoping for a Tina Fey, Amy Poehler team up
Hey.
at the top of that.
Hmm.
That was kind of toward the end of their big run together. But yeah, this, like I said, took it out of the big city, kind of gave it a new vibe, and then started bringing all those references and little things in there, and really enjoyable. Like I was also telling Ted, I haven't. The only movies I've seen throughout the pandemic at a theater have been the screenings we've done for different movies, but this is one I'm really
Nice.
considering maybe going back this weekend to check out one more time
Yeah.
because it was really fun. I enjoyed it.
I recommend the IMAX, bro, on the north side.
Ooh,
That
that's
listen,
a good
I
call.
that was my first viewing, and that sound is booming. Like you get every single detail in that sound, and
Maybe I
so
can really hear Josh Gad and the Muncher there.
There you go.
probably so, probably so. Joe, your rating, man.
So what did you give it, Mike?
4.5.
4.5 like Jericho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the stickler of the group. I'm just going to wind up giving it a 3.0 because it doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily give you anything new. It's kind of rehashing some of the older bits from the original film. Um, Aside from that, basically it's a product of what a reboot looks like in modern times from the Hollywood studios. They're going to kind of play it safe. They don't want to differentiate themselves too much from the original source material. So you're not going to really get a lot of new introductions to anything that's extravagant. They're going to play it safe. They're going to use the same old tried and true villains and characters that you're already used to from the original films and bring them in because they're going to do the fan service. And I get all that stuff at the end of the day. But just looking at the movie at a whole, despite what it was fun. Yeah, sure, it was fun at times. Slow burn in the beginning. Cinematography to me was on point. I kind of like the way that they use the different camera angles. I thought the sound was actually really good as well. CGI was good, but ultimately I got to base it on the story that was presented in front of us. So I got to give it a 3.0. At the end of the day, I mean, I think they did a good job, but to me, I mean, it just lacked a lot of substance as far as the storyline goes. It had a lot of issues to me. So 3.0.
Should I turn
And
you on, Ted?
and I'm going to round out this rating scale by saying I felt that they gave us a lot of stuff that was new, technology wise. The story wise was, much further off from the '84 film than the 2016 version was. that like literally had the library ghost sequence all over again. So I love that
Big
they
County
gave us,
University.
yeah, I love that they gave us new characters, that they wrote this story with this family, that they murdered a Ghostbuster in the opening scene, like things I thought I'd never seen in a Ghostbuster movie, and then the final act is absolute perfection, something I've never seen before, something I never expected, as I already mentioned, and that I've never had another emotional reaction to as strongly as this, other than Luke Skywalker at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian.
too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think I said season 1 earlier. Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Never again am I ever gonna feel like that, because I don't think you can kind of put those situations, you can't put these situations together like it was. It was almost like the perfect time. It's the only time you can do this. To wait 30 years to put a movie together with these characters in this timeline, and to bring back this beloved character in this movie the way that they did, it can't be done again. I don't know how you can do that again. This like real life scenario cannot be done again is what I'm trying to get at. For that
Yeah.
reason, for them being able to pull all this off, the comedy, the scary elements, the details, the just everything, absolute perfection. I give it a 5.
Of
I
course.
cannot wait. Well, it's not far from these other guys, and I cannot wait to see what this franchise does, because for the first time in my life since 1989, I feel like the Ghostbusters franchise is alive and well. And I've been waiting for this kind of a feeling, this kind of a moment for 30 years. So it's been a very long time coming. And again, like I said, there's no worry about it. I feel like it's going to be good from here on out. We want to hear from you guys. Let us know what you thought about Ghostbusters Afterlife. Give us a scale 1 through 5. Drop your rating in the comments below. Oh, my bad. That brings our overall rating to a 4.25. Not too shabby, as I always freaking say. We
Still need
got
to
some
know what JC thinks of the film, though.
we I could probably guess it's gonna be somewhere around these two guys, I'm sure. Because we all know how
I
JC
think he'll get emotional at the end too. He
Yeah.
likes that kind of stuff. So
absolutely. We have some big news that I've been waiting to talk about, so I'm gonna go
uh-oh.
ahead and share my screen here a little bit. Ernie Hudson is going to be making a tour of Texas, if you will. He's going to be making several appearances during the Celebrity Fan Fest Film Festival, December 9th through the 12th. He's going to be on site doing a Q&A with fans, doing autographs, doing photo ops, and yours truly, myself, I will be leading the Q&A sessions with the fans before the films. So, for more information on how you can meet and get an autograph from the one and only Ernie Hudson, go to celebrityfanfest.com to find out which theaters they're going to be using. Because it's 3 different locations across 4 days, and so it's going to be fantastic seeing all these Ghostbuster fans together again. 2 weeks, you got 2 weeks to plan, folks. Make sure you get your tickets as soon as possible. Lastly, I'm just
Said he
gonna
will be. Said he's going to be signing autographs as well.
Yes,
I will absolutely try and do that if
he's going to just start every Q&A with, "First of all, Ernie, you're perfect and I love you. I just want to tell you that first."
Did you see the
absolutely,
score I gave the movie?
absolutely. Listen, the last thing I want to say is that call it fate, call it luck, call it karma, but I believe everything happens for a reason, and I believe that this movie was 30 years in the making, and again, it was kind of the perfect storm in order for this story to be able to be made. You can't make the story any other way, but under the circumstances that we as a fandom and them as creators came up with. So yeah, fantastic. Check us out next week as we're going to be reviewing the Hawkeye series. More Marvel content for us to be talking about. We're also going to be continuing our Young Justice season 4 Phantoms discussion, so you don't want to miss that. For the
Affleck
Geek
was the bomb in Phantoms, yo. I just have to say that every time I hear that.
Yep.
for the Geekcast, my name is Steady. With me on this episode is the man behind the magic, the one and only Joe Garcia.
Hey, well, thanks everybody for watching, and hopefully you can go ahead and give us your opinion about what you thought about Ghostbusters Afterlife, fun film. Unfortunately for me, they have some issues. So
You had to do that again. We already did that,
got
Joe.
you, man. I got it. Well,
We
Teddy's
already
over here.
talked about it.
Teddy, you're such a fanboy. You're gonna always give it a 5
We
because
already
to you
talked
it's
about it.
religion, it's Bible. I get it, man.
We already talked about it, Joe.
I
We
get it.
already,
I get it.
that part's over.
Ted's
We
like,
also got
you
one
know,
and only Jericho.
There you go.
And last but not the least, we got Mike.
Thanks, guys. I'm sure JC would be remiss if I didn't remind y'all the WrestleCast will be back next Tuesday. We've got a lot to catch up and cover. There was Survivor Series, there was releases, and tonight on AEW Dynamite, CM Punk, MJF in a ring, probably the best back and forth promo that you've seen in a long time. If you
Nice.
haven't seen it or don't watch it, check it out. It was great. These two guys are killer on the mic, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that next week, amongst other things. So it might be a really long show. I hope not, because next week we're actually back to school. So kind of wish we would have had something this week.
That's right.
Mr. Baseball coach and soft and T-ball fan. No, I'm just kidding. Love you, Jesse and Tina. Bye, guys. Thanks.
Have a good night, folks.